Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Series.
So, what are things you want to see? They immediately want to talk, right? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Preview of it. It's a 5-minute preview that was put on by, it's going to be on the HGTV network. Hold on. Jacksonville, hello. And hi, Wendy in Princeton. Great to see you. Toronto, friends in Canada. We love our Canadian friends. Julia, hi, Julia. We got the UK on the line. That's fantastic. Hi, Arizona, formerly of Indiana. It's kind of cool. That's great. Concord, Michigan, Dallas. Hello, New Jersey, Maryland. More Canadians. You go. Great to see everybody. As we finish up letting everybody in, like I said, you know, I love to know where you guys are coming in from. And let me do a couple of things before we announce our invited guest. I just wanted everybody to know that if you guys don't already know, I host a lecture. It was formerly known as History of Miniatures, but I've renamed it. And it's now known as The Rise of Miniatures, a Pop Culture Phenomenon. The content hasn't changed, the name has changed. And I think it's a little bit more reflective of the lecture that I do. So I'm gonna put the link in the box, in the chat box, if you guys wanna join. This is a pay-for event. It's happening on January 21st. It's a 7 p.m. It's like an evening, East Coast time, 7 p.m. lecture. It's a lot of fun. This is for whether you're a newbie or if you are a seasoned miniaturist. I think everybody walks away from this event really being encouraged and enthused by this great big world of tiny. So definitely would love to see you guys at this lecture. And if you guys, you know, I do this presentation for libraries, arts organizations. So if you know of an organization that would be interested in having me come and talk about miniatures, let me know. Put it in the chat box or reach out to me separately. But I do this lecture for other organizations. I have other Meet the Miniaturists coming up in January. I'm doing a Meet the Miniaturist Interior Designers Edition. I'll have another open studio, Meet the Miniaturist. And then finally, I'm doing one called The Renovators. These are miniaturists who go out and acquire these doll houses, whether they're from garage sales or antique shops, and they renovate them. And so we're gonna meet those guys. So I'll put the link in the box below for my social media channels. Definitely sign up on my website so you don't miss any updates. And then finally, I do a weekly, it's a little loose right now in terms of the timing. I do a News and Views, a Facebook Live event, which recaps the latest happenings in the mini world. So look for that in the social media, in my social media box below, and definitely sign up for updates so that you know when they're happening. But there's lots of things happening content-wise with D. Thomas Miniatures, and I would love to see you all there. In the meantime, or with that, I want to introduce our guest for Meet the Miniaturist Museum Edition, Elaine Mancini. She is the Executive Director of the Museum of Miniature Houses in Carmel, Indiana. We're so glad you are here. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to get this very special walkthrough, a virtual walkthrough of the museum. We're going to hear about this awesome museum, which houses dozens, which in the collection, there are dozens of doll houses and dozens of room boxes and thousands of miniature objects. Obviously, we're not going to see all of them today, but we're going to get a taste of them so that you guys can put this on your list of places to visit and put it on your bucket list of miniature places to see. But with that, I would love to say hello to Elaine and welcome you to Meet the Miniaturist. How are you? Yay!
I'm fine, Darren. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. Thank you again for joining. So I just want to remind everybody the chat box will be open for questions, but I will turn it over to Elaine.
Okay, first I'd like to tell you a little bit about our museum. We opened to the public in 1993, so this will be our 28th year. We were started by 3 miniature artisans, all of whom came to miniatures from very different directions. One was Nancy Lash, who was interested only in replicating houses that were part of her personal life, such as her childhood home and her family's cottage on Lake Michigan. We will see her childhood home later. Then there's Suzanne Lanzoff, who makes beautifully appointed, well-furnished houses and room boxes. She's made, I think, 6 houses and 35 room boxes, if I'm correct in my memory. And she often uses items made by the leading miniaturists of the day. And then there's Susie Moffett, who came to miniatures through needlework, especially pettipoint. She's awesome at it. And she loves to display scenes of fantasy and whimsy. And of course, we'll see works by her as well. When we opened in 1993, we had 34 objects. And this was all works of these 3 founders who had determined that they did not want their miniatures lost to future generations. They wanted to share them. Today, we have over 7,000 objects. So a fully furnished house, for example, is just 1 object. So we have 7,000 objects in our inventory. What I'd like to start with is 221B Baker Street by Laverne Sullivan. It's one of the favorite pieces in the museum and is one of the most, one of our pins on Pinterest board that received the most impressions, thousands of them to be exact. Laverne Sullivan started making miniatures in the 1960s until she passed away in the early 2000s. And she often made things that her daughter Lisa wanted her to make.
So Elaine, I'm sorry, Elaine, you're a little muffled. I don't know if it's the distance from the phone.
All right, if I'm closer to the phone, can you hear me better?
Perfect, perfect.
Okay, so Laverne made things for her daughter Lisa, and around 1992, Lisa had just finished reading all of Arthur Conan Doyle's books and had watched a PBS series about Sherlock Holmes and asked her mother to make something pertaining to Sherlock Holmes. This is the result. 221B Baker Street was, of course, Holmes's home. And this room is filled with clues that were used to solve particular cases. For example, if you can see these dueling pistols on the table, they were used to solve the case, the problem of Thor Bridge. And to the left, there's a bamboo cane, walking stick, next to the mantelpiece, and that was used to solve the case of the Speckled Band. In all, there are about 30 clues in this room pertaining to various cases. I'd like to continue with Laverne, and that is her hotel. She went to Louisville, Kentucky, and took photographs of hotels built around 1900 because she was very taken with them. And you can see the working fan, and everybody gets a kick out of that. But she also has a story within a story here. So we have Grandpa in the living room. He's trying to take a nap underneath the newspaper with his grandson trying to wake him up with a feather. His mother and his grandmother have told him repeatedly to stop doing that and are now rising from their chairs to go to restrain him physically. Meanwhile, his sister has discovered the bell on the manager's desk and is ringing it incessantly while the poor manager is trying to connect a phone call on the switchboard.
That's awesome.
And above that is this chaotic scene of 2 boys giving their dog a bath. If you can see, the sign says, "Please keep the bathroom clean." And at a particular angle, the boys opened the door because a man is in the hallway. You can see him there. He's trying to use the bathroom, but of course can't because it's occupied. So he's walking away in a huff with his bathrobe and newspaper and towel. And between the man and the bathroom is a fully stocked linen closet.
Wow. I love it.
And then finally we have the bridal suite. This poor bride has a headache, either because of the ruckus that these kids are making at the end of the hall, or because of the strains of the day. We don't know. And she's asked for aspirin. So the maid has entered the room with a pitcher of water and a bottle of Bayer aspirin. You can't see it. It's so tiny, but the label clearly says Bayer aspirin, which was a remarkable feat because this was well before digital photography and manipulation of ratio online. This was all done by photographing at about a 5-foot level and then printing and then rephotographing to get it down to the size that it was needed.
I love it. I love it. We do have a couple of questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
It's actually a cross between questions and comments. There is a participant who's loving the wallpaper, which I agree. Question is the light source above the ceiling panels. Is that one big panel? Yes.
It is. It is. It's a fluorescent bulb behind a plastic panel.
So it really lights the room box really nicely.
Yes.
And I guess my question is, I love the sconces and I love the glass shades, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty unique. I don't think I've seen them, but they do look like Clarabelle sconces, but I don't recognize the shades, but they're really unique. I like them.
Yeah, they are quite beautiful.
Yeah.
Laverne made a lot of her things herself, and then of course, like everybody else, she purchased other things that she couldn't make.
Yeah, awesome. Love it.
All right, we're going across the room. And this is part of an exhibit called Smallest of the Small. It's one of our temporary exhibits. We show about 3 or 4 temporary exhibits simultaneously. And the large case in the front room is for the major exhibit, which is what this is. So here you can see the Mercury spacecraft, the Gemini 3 spacecraft, and the Gemini 4 spacecraft, complete with the walk in space, or rather floating in space, of Ed White back in 1965. Apparently, he floated there for 20 minutes in space and was the first to do so. These are in the exhibit because of their small ratio. They're 1/32 of an inch. But it also shows that a lot of the times the museum shows miniature exhibits to depict history and the humanities. We do a lot of things that relate miniatures to the humanities, to the fine arts, to the performing arts, etc. Above that is a 1/2-inch scale living room made by Betty Martin, who was from Kentucky, I believe. And then above that, which I can't even reach, is a 1/4 inch. So I'm going to put my finger in here to give you some idea of the tiny size of this. I mean, I know your audience knows what 1/4 inch scale is, but it's so fascinating to actually see it next to a human finger. This is a fabric store on the ground floor and living quarters on the second floor. It was made by Gail Hennis, and she was a very interesting person. She was an active member of the Greensboro Miniature Club. It was president of that club in 1987. But she was also responsible for the graduate program of Human and Health, I'm sorry, Health and Human Performance at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. So she was quite an amazing character. And I had never seen this piece before. It was put in this exhibit. This is not something we display very often.
What is it, about 10 inches high, would you say? The total?
Oh no,
Less?
I'd say 8 inches,
8 inches.
maybe.
Wow. Yep.
There's my
Wow.
yeah, it's really tiny.
Yeah, on camera, it looks really big.
Now, like, well, my videographer has the camera, the phone right in front of it.
No, it's
what's interesting is that in the fabric store, all these bolts of fabric are individual bolts.
Yep.
You know, they're not just like library books are not painted or anything. They're all individual bolts. Nice. So there must be about 100 of them in there.
Nice. And I love the scaling of the fabric rolls because they're appropriately scaled even down to quarter scale. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's very cool. Okay, moving to another exhibit, another piece in this smallest of the small exhibit, which mainly has 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch items, is the 1/2 inch scale wedding celebration that belonged to B. and Harold Abbott. It's very fun. It is completely detailed with the presents and the shoes laid out and the dress laid out on the bed with the accent pillows. I mean, it's just perfect. But I did want to show you this particularly because of B. and Harold Abbott. They were almost as important to this museum as the 3 co-founders. They were miniaturists themselves. They belonged to a miniature club called Minimizers, which was also our co-founder Susie Moffett belonged to and still belongs to. And they were avid collectors. And they gave us their entire collection. So we have hundreds of dolls ranging in size from a thumbnail to about 7 inches. And we have something like 100 maybe Breyer horses. Now, you know, Breyer horses are toy horses that are plastic. They're very nice. They're sold now, very popular. But the Abbotts brought them down to Lexington and asked the horse experts what type of horse each was, what kind of tack they would have, who would ride them, and what kind of work they would be involved in. They then had someone put real horsehair as the mane and tails, and then they commissioned an expert on hand tooling leather tack, and then they've commissioned someone else to do costumed riders. So the Abbotts were nothing if not obsessive about their collection, and of course we benefit from it.
Are there any plans to put those horses out?
Yes, I'll show them to you. We will pass by them. They're in the next room.
Oh, perfect.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And finally, in this room is the Yellow Georgian by Dorothy Stickles. Now, this is all a very interesting story. I mean, we have a story behind everything, of course, in this museum. But Dorothy Stickles, we didn't know her. She lived on Long Island. And when she passed away, in her will, specified that her collection of houses would go to a museum that specialized in miniatures. Wow. At the time, we were looking for miniatures that were museum worthy, and so we were very happy to accept them. Suzanne Lanzoff, one of our co-founders, instructed the attorney to hire an art mover, take pictures of every single room from all different angles, number the rooms, put all the stuff and the photographs in a box for each room separately and ship it here. And all of that work turned out great because Suzanne was able to recreate it the way Dorothy wanted it, and there was no breakage. Now, Dorothy, as you can see on the canopy bed, she came to miniatures like our Susie Moffat did through needlework. And she did all the needlework in this house, the bedding and the rugs.
Do we have an idea of which artists might be represented in this house? I mean, I see silver, I see beautiful furniture.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, I mean, they all look like. I mean, they look
I
like
know.
they're made by well-known artists. Like I could see the knife box. I can only imagine who made that. But yeah, I mean, they
Right.
look like well-known artisan pieces. You could tell they're really, really well made.
Correct. And we call her our house beautiful lady because if these houses were real, they would be on the cover of House Beautiful.
That's right.
And notice the detail on this dining room table. Okay, do you see that the turkey is carved and each plate has cranberry sauce, mashed potatoes and gravy, peas, and sliced turkey.
Awesome.
It's awesome. She did not cut any corners. So you're right, Darren, that when you see silver, it is silver.
Yeah.
When you see porcelain, it's porcelain. When you see ivory, it's ivory. When you see something small carved in black, it's ebony, and so on.
And the house is custom, right? The house was made for her?
Yes, yes. Yes, it was.
Okay.
We do know over here in the music room that this is a Ralph Partelot French harpsichord.
Yeah.
The museum has 3 of his harpsichords.
Wow.
They're particularly stunning.
Yeah, totally.
And then up on the top, Dorothy's husband had a passion for making model ships. So she included model ships in all of her houses. And what's so incredible is if you look at the mantelpiece, there's a model of a ship, and it's hard to see because it's small, but the painting of the ship is the same kind of ship as the model.
You can see it. We could see it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Are there any questions while we go to the next room?
That's a good question. Does anybody have any questions before we move on? I mean, this is fabulous. This is an amazing piece. I'm just loving it. We could spend days just looking at this. When did the museum acquire this piece?
Or early in the 90s.
In the 90s. Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you guys have any questions.
But the house.
Yeah.
The house was begun. The house was begun in 1979. This one. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. Thank you.
All right. Here in the hallway, it's a little glary, but we can't do a tour of the museum in Indiana without showing you Jane Graber pottery.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Probably most of your audience knows Jane Graber's work. She's been making miniature pottery for more than 40 years and is inducted into IGMA, and she just retired. So we are thrilled to have so much of her work. We also have always had her work in our shop, and it's been one of them we always sell out. So unfortunately, she's not doing wholesale anymore, so we can't get any additions. Right. She was working for a living history museum in Ohio and was making pottery replicas of some of their pieces, and then decided that she would try doing miniature pottery on her own. She specializes in 18th and 19th century pottery, particularly stoneware, which you see in the front of the case, and redware, that you can see very well up on this yellow stand. There are 2 steps to both processes. Stoneware is thrown twice, and then she takes a crow quill pen dipped in cobalt stain to make the designs on the surface. The redware is a 2-layer process. She makes a body of red clay and then puts a slip of yellow clay over that and carves away to reveal her design.
Beautiful.
She was born and raised and did most of her work in Indiana. And I think it maybe has come back to Indiana. I'm not sure. She moved to Michigan.
Is most of this work also you've acquired over the years, or I guess I'm just thinking about like what time
Yes.
period were they made?
Yes, we've acquired these pieces over the years in Jane's case.
Mhm.
Right. And then right above this, and this shows you one case we have. We only display about maybe a quarter to a third of the collection, but you can see the incredible detail on the feeding bags. Or look at this saddle; it is all hand tooled leather. You have your various kinds of riders, your equestrians, your cowboys. And this is all done with, and you can see the horsehair on the manes and tails. And this is all done with just plastic rider horses, toys.
Yeah, I think we forget that there is a whole subculture of folks who collect these horses and show them, and then
Yes.
and it's really about the horses, but we forget that there are all these beautiful miniatures that are made to support this category, and the miniatures are incredible. I mean, they're just the leather work, and you could see that even that suitcase there, it's awesome.
Yeah, these are awesome. All right, on to the next room.
Oh, look at that Tudor.
All right, this is Nancy Lesch's childhood home.
Oh.
She grew up in this house in the 1940s. It still exists right outside of Cincinnati. You can see what she's done to solve the problem that we always have in showing miniatures of that fourth wall. She just went and put the furniture and the drapes and everything else adhered to the wall so we can appreciate what would be in the entire room. You can't see, because it's way back in the corner of the living room, that there is a glass of creme de menthe that has been poured for her mother. Her mother liked creme de menthe as a nightcap, so it is waiting for her next to the wing chair, on the table next to the wing chair. Nancy she recorded how many hours she spent on making this house, but she stopped after 1,000 hours. So we're not sure how far beyond that she went. And for some reason, I don't know why she stopped keeping track. It is an exact replica of the house she grew up in. When the family was going to sell it, she and her husband went and took photographs of everything that was in it and measured all the rooms, all the hallways, so that they could reproduce it faithfully. The stucco is made of spackle paste that's been dabbed with a sponge. And the radiators are made of pierced sheet metal that she got from the hardware store. And all of these thousands of shingles are made of red sandpaper.
So
The closets are full of clothes. The drawers are full of items. The refrigerator is fully stocked.
Oh, gosh.
There's nothing about this house that doesn't say I am well lived in.
Is it
And
architecturally
because it's
accurate?
from the 1940s,
Yeah.
there's very little depiction of American domestic life in the 1940s. So this is truly an important piece historically as well.
Snapshot. Elaine,
Do you have any questions?
is it an architecturally accurate house? Like, are there more rooms that we're not seeing, and does it go around?
Do you have any questions?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
So my question is it architecturally accurate? Is the home
Yes.
you know, a scale
Completely.
model of the actual home, so there are rooms behind that we're not seeing?
Yes. Here, we'll move around as slowly as we can to
Yeah.
show you the scale of this
Oh
thing.
goodness. And where was this house again?
Outside of Cincinnati.
Cincinnati. Okay, beautiful. Oh my God, there's the other side. Oh my. Ah,
Now, can you see this room with the two red twin beds?
yeah.
And between the two red twin beds is a photograph of a young man. That was Nancy's childhood sweetheart. And when her husband Fred saw that picture, he said, "Why don't you have a picture of me?" Nancy said, "Because it was true and accurate. I didn't know it."
Elaine, you're cutting out a bit and you're a little muffled.
Okay. I was saying about there's a portrait between the two beds of Nancy's high school boyfriend that
Oh,
her husband wasn't particularly thrilled to see. But she said that's what she had next to her bed when she was growing up in the house. So that was going to stay there.
that's great. That's
Up
great.
on the wall can you get our photographs of the actual house, the front and the back of the actual house.
Wow, that's great. That is great.
Okay.
Awesome. It was the radiator for me, the radiator cover from the other side. That is probably my favorite part of this whole house. That radiator cover. Ah,
Now you notice that because it's a complete replica,
yeah.
she's got fully turned out bathrooms. And with miniatures, especially like Dorothy Stickles' houses, don't have bathrooms in their house.
Right,
Be-
right.
They're not interested,
All right. So you guys are on both cameras going right now, and both of your mics are muted. So yeah, I think you need to come back.
Am I back?
You're back.
I'm back.
You're back.
Okay. Now we're going to Le Chateau.
Okay.
This is a wonderful piece. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. It was based on a visit to the Boyer Chateau, you can see in the photograph, in Reims, France. Dr. and Mrs. Alan Fawcett went to France to celebrate the doctor's 70th birthday. They were so enthralled with this chateau that they came home and commissioned a replica of it. Now, again, because in order to display it, it doesn't look exactly like the chateau because it's open. So you have to understand that, right? Dr. Fawcett was a retired eye surgeon, and so he did all of the electrical. Often the husbands of the wives who are making the miniatures want to get involved, and because they're jealous of all the time that the wife spends on the miniatures, and so they want to do something too, and they often
Oh my God. You're cutting out there.
in the corner
Oh, you're back.
another Ralph Bartolo harpsichord. And in the bedroom above that, I mean, there are paintings everywhere, but if you can look at the painting above the mantelpiece,
Yeah.
that's Renoir, an 1880 portrait of a young woman.
Wow.
And there's Michelangelo's David in the grand hallway.
Oh, look at that.
Isn't that beautiful?
Beautiful.
It's just exquisite stuff.
Oh,
And then in the dining room
oh.
is on the back wall are Rembrandt portraits.
Do we know if those are hand painted?
They are hand painted, yes, but I don't know by whom.
Yeah, right. And I love that chandelier. That chandelier is delicious.
Isn't that beautiful?
And
Yes.
the ceiling is just fantastic too. Does anybody have any questions? Lots of great comments. They're loving it. They say it looks so comfy and homey. The tour is giving them delight, which is great. We did get a question about the use of dolls and in some of the houses and not in others. Do you have a perspective? Does a museum have a perspective on that?
There's a big debate about dolls. Suzanne Lanzoff, one of our co-founders, uses dolls in a lot of her room boxes and houses. But then there are others who feel that dolls detract from the miniature. We're all human, and we are most interested in other humans, and dolls are people. They're replicas of people. So when you look at a miniature with dolls in it, our eyes tend to go to the dolls first.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of miniaturists think that they're more purist, if you will, that they want you to focus, like the faucets do here. They want you to focus on all these fabulous furnishings and the bronzes and the paintings and so on, and not be distracted by the dolls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
On the other hand, I mean, we've debated this over and over again. Dolls create drama, again, because they're human, or the depictions of human. So, and you will see a wonderful example of that in just a minute, of these two ladies who have been walking through a museum and they're absolutely exhausted and they're hysterical. It really makes the whole thing quite fun.
Wow, that's awesome.
So, in other words, it's a matter of personal taste by the miniaturist.
Right. And that, yeah. And what year was that made, or what years was that made?
What was done? It was. Let's see. I'm trying to remember. In 1990s.
1990s. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I don't know how long it took them. They made the trip to France in 1990, and they donated it to us. They lived in Wheeling, West Virginia, and they donated it to us in 2010. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure how. I know it took them many years to put it together, but I don't think it took them 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. It's really beautiful.
And these,
yeah,
you see the decanter here that has is filled with port, and the hand thrown goblets.
I just love the chairs and the sofa, the tufted leather. It looks like leather. We did get a question about, do you have are all of the pieces inside the structure cataloged, and does that become available to museum visitors, or is that available somewhere online in terms of the artisans that contributed to these structures?
We have most of in our database, we have most of the contents cataloged,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not readily available to, we certainly can find out if anyone has a particular request.
Mm-hmm.
We'd certainly look it up for them.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have our database online.
Mm-hmm.
We've been talking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
It's a matter of resources, Darren.
I hear ya. Then we had one more question about, does the museum have a picture book?
What do you mean a picture book?
Like, is there a book published about of pieces you have in the museum?
No, no, there's not. We do have over 1,000 pins on Pinterest. And those are, high resolution photographs of particular objects. So if you really want a good sense of what's in our collection, Pinterest is one source. Our website has a virtual gallery organized by theme or by artisan, and we have more than 150 of those.
Awesome. Well, that's good to know that they can find you on Pinterest. Do you know what is the name of the account? Is it, is the name of the museum?
Yeah, I think it's Museum of Mini Houses.
Okay, great. And then one more request was from one of the attendees to pan out so we could see the entire structure again.
Sure.
Ugh, that is just stunning.
Now you see we've taken the doors off. So there's nothing here. These were doors that closed and looked exactly like the chateau upon which this is based.
That's just beautiful. That is just stunning.
Yeah, it's interesting that they both passed away not so long ago. They passed away after they celebrated their 70th wedding anniversary.
Oh, that's lovely.
And in their obituaries, there's no mention of miniatures.
Really?
Really? Isn't that funny? Yeah, they were busy doing other things. If I remember correctly, they had something like 5 children, 11 grandchildren, and 17 great grandchildren.
Wow.
Yeah.
I noticed that you have the little icon of the earphone. So I guess there's a store available.
Yes, thank you for noticing. We do have, and it's brand new. We've had it for many years, but we got a grant to update and upgrade our audio tour. It's free of charge. It's offered to anybody who comes to the museum. And we have about 35 objects, maybe 35, 37 of our pieces are included on the audio tour.
Wow. That's awesome.
Now, we also had, but we had to take them down because of COVID. In every room, there is a binder of more information about most of the things that are in the room. So, but we removed that because, we didn't know in COVID times who was handling that and, so on. It was too hard for us to keep it clean.
Oh, that tufted leather settee, killing me. Wow, that's just great. Oh.
Okay.
Marcella wants to know if all the miniatures are on display or are there some in storage. I imagine there are.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This is, I don't know what percentage it is now, but we have plenty in storage.
Wow.
Plenty. Yeah. At least as much as we have on display.
Oh, just incredible.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Okay, on to the next room.
Oh, that Tudor, it's killing me.
Okay, now we're getting in. We saw Nancy Lesch's house where she grew up in, and this is our other co-founder, Suzanne Lanzoff. This was her first completed house. It took her 6 years to make, and it's a Victorian. It's actually from a kit from the Real Good Toy Company.
Oh,
Okay.
yep. Better.
Please take care of my baby. His name is George.
Oh,
Now, this was not a totally freak occurrence in the 1880s. A house like this may well have had a baby left on the doorstep because the mother who wasn't able to take care of the baby would assume that the people who live in this kind of house would have the means to raise the child. Now, Suzanne made 2,000 roof shingles. She also made 17 pieces of furniture and most of the bedding and the curtains. And now we're back to Susie Moffett. I told you that she sometimes uses dolls and that dolls create drama. This is certainly a wonderful example of that in the Unicorn Museum. Susie had a unicorn collection for many years, and that's what she used to create the museum. I also told you that she comes to miniatures through needlework, and all of this fabulous tapestry and the rug is done by Susie. The dolls of these exhausted ladies were made by Kat Wingler. Yeah, this unicorn rug made by Susie is quite spectacular.
lovely. Can you talk a little bit about what's permanent versus what might be rotating in and out?
Oh, all of this that I've shown you is permanent except for the items in the smallest of the small exhibit.
Mm-hmm.
So all the other things are part of the permanent collection. We currently have a temporary exhibit of paper dragons that are really spectacular. We can show you that because we happen to be in that room.
Awesome.
Look at these. Aren't they great?
Wow.
These aren't miniatures, but the name of our museum is the Museum of Miniature Houses and Other Collections.
Right.
And the founders felt strongly that some people might not be interested in miniatures, but other people might be interested in people's collections. So we display all kinds of collections, whether miniature or full size. Everything from duck decoys to beaded handbags of the 1920s to 19th century crystal.
Did we see that house that you panned to get to that, Pete, to that exhibit to the left? Looked like a cape. Not that one.
Oh, yes. It doesn't show up very well. This is Susie Moffat's wedding house. It is a cape. It's got a lot of glare in the front of it, which is why we didn't include it. But she's got a story going on here. The house is all decked up for a wedding celebration. But if you can see here, that Grandpa is seeing what's in the refrigerator. He's supposed to be in the front of the house watching his granddaughter, who's the flower girl. But the flower girl has discovered the cat. So she's on the floor playing with the cat and ruining her dress. You can see her on the first floor.
Is that 12 scale? Because it looks small.
No, it's 12 scale.
12 scale. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And then up in, Susie often has a miniature and a miniature. And on the top floor, you can see the miniature house on the chest. That is what this cape would look like, the soapbox house would look like if it were closed up.
Wow.
So it's a miniature of this miniature.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Very charming. Let me see if we have any questions. Any questions, you guys?
Okay. Meanwhile, we'll
Not.
now
not
I wanted
oh, wow.
I spoke about Suzanne Lanzoff often used items made by the outstanding miniaturists of the day, and this 1920s bedroom is a perfect example of it. This chandelier, this beautiful brass chandelier, was made by the company Lighting Bug. They started in 1975 and they're still active, so you may well know them. The tapestry on the far wall underneath the chandelier is made by another IGMA member, Lucy Idukovic. The tatted doily on the left on this nightstand was made by Suzanne Herget. She learned how to tat in around 1981, and she was also inducted into IGMA in, I think it was 2007. And most of the major furniture pieces were all came from the Reminiscence Company in the 1980s.
Just so folks, there might be some folks who might not know IGMA. This is the Guild of Miniature Artisans. It's the organization that provides credit to artisans and designates artisans and fellows of making miniatures, just so folks know, in case you didn't know what the Guild was.
Yes, but unfortunately they've closed.
Who is closed?
IGMA.
No, what do you mean closed? I mean,
they're not online anymore.
No, the Guild is still very active. Maybe their website was down, but no, the Guild is still very much active. Absolutely, no. They might have missed the process this year because of COVID, but no, they're still
that may be,
absolutely.
That may be, yes.
Yeah.
No, they're very important to. I don't want to use the word legitimized because I don't think miniatures need to be legitimized, but the Guild certainly lended credibility to the art of making miniatures.
Right.
Because it's juried. Not anyone can join it. You have to be selected by a jury as either an artisan or a fellow.
Right.
So having IGMA status is a very cool thing to have if you're a miniaturist.
That's right. I just want to say it's that arts and crafts lamp for me. That is just
isn't that beautiful?
Oh my goodness. Yes.
Yeah, most of Suzanne's houses and room boxes I would live in very easily with no complaint.
Awesome.
Okay. This I want to show you. It's Susie Moffat's 12 Dancing Princesses. I don't know if you know the story. It's a story from the Brothers Grimm. And these 12 princesses, each morning their slippers are ruined. And the king wants to know why, but they won't say. There's a young man who gets involved somehow. And he follows the princesses to the enchanted forest, which is this scene, and sees that they meet up with enchanted princes and dance the night away, which is how their slippers are getting ruined. this is so special is that there's nothing valuable in this, the materials. There's nothing valuable in this. This is tinsel and plastic beads and so on, everyday common objects to make this absolutely gorgeous scene. There are 150 lights in here, and the wire of the lights are creating the limbs of the trees.
Beautiful. That's just beautiful. Right?
Because in the story, I think they're made, the trees are made of silver and diamonds. And so this approximates that completely.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And behind that is another work by Susie Moffett. This is in 1/4-inch scale. Susie, as with the wedding house, has stories behind these works that are very important to her. These characters are quite alive to her, and she creates the house based on attributes of the character she has in mind. So this is Mrs. Peterman's house. Mrs. Peterman loves to garden, and you can see her over here in the garden working away. Isn't this a beautiful garden?
Mm-hmm.
Gorgeous.
Lovely.
And her daughter, named Carol, is 25 years old and has come to live with her mother in the attic apartment. Carol has recently graduated from college and got a job, and her mother's house is closer to her job. So she's living with mom for a while and hopes to be able to afford her own place in San Francisco. So we don't know if we wish her well that she does find a place.
Right. That's great. That's great.
How are we doing on time?
I think we're good. We're good. Yeah, we're just at the 1 hour mark. So, how much more do you have to see?
One.
Okay, let's see it. Let's see it.
Okay. Okay.
Oh.
All right. I think every museum should have a thorn room.
Oh, we did get a question about that.
Yeah, I think. Well, I assume everybody knows about Mrs. Narcissa Niblack Thorne. She was born and raised in Vincennes, Indiana, by the way. I don't think that's too well known.
Wow.
She created more than 60 rooms displaying architecture and domestic life in England, the US, and France. And these are all on display. She did these in the 1920s and 1930s. They were all on display at the Art Institute of Chicago. In the 1950s, she would create once in a while a room like this one, this exotic bar scene, that she would auction off at charity events. And that's what happened to this one. It was successfully bid on by someone who then sold it to Mr. Samuel Levin, and Mr. Levin donated it to the museum.
Wow.
So actually, if you go on Wikipedia and look up Narcissa Niblack Thorne, you will find a short paragraph saying that her bar is at the Museum of Miniature Houses in Carmel, Indiana.
Perfect. Perfect. So nice to have a thorn room.
It is.
It is. It is. Yeah. I mean, there's a difference between the thorn rooms that she auctioned off and the ones that are actually housed in the Chicago Museum, but
Yes.
they're still thorn
Correct.
rooms. They were created by her.
Correct. They are created by her.
Yeah.
I mean, but here the gold is not real gold, and she's not using precious gems like she did in the famous Art Institute thorn rooms.
Yeah. That's terrific. That is just so awesome. Elaine, this has just been such a treat. Thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
taking us through and giving us just a taste. I mean, if this doesn't get you going to book a trip to Carmel, Indiana. I don't know what would, but this was just fantastic. Thank you so much for taking us through this. And this has just been such a pleasure. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody else out there for joining us for Meet the Miniatures Museum Edition. I hope everybody has a great rest of the weekend and enjoy your week coming up. And thanks again, Elaine. Take care.
Bye.
All right, bye.